Good evening, class. Welcome to Pre-Med. My name is Dr. Ding Dong, and you shall address me as none other than Dr. Ding Dong. Okay, so you're a bunch of young pre-med students in training. I hope you find tonight's lecture most enlightening. We're going to learn about certain parts of the human anatomy. Let me get out my Gray's Anatomy. Okay, Gray's Anatomy. Okay, let's just okay. Okay, let's see. Okay. The female perineum. The female perineum presents certain differences from that of the male. In consequence of the whole of the structures, which constitute as being perforated in the middle line by the vulvo-vaginal passage. The superficial fascia, as in the male, consists of two layers, of which the superficial one is continuous with the superficial fascia over the rest of the body. And the deep layer, corresponding to the fascia of Colles in the male, is like it is attached to the ischiopubic ramus in front of, is continued forward through the labia majora to the inguinal region. It is of less extent than the male, and the consequence of being perforated by the aperture of the vulva. On removing the fascia, the muscles of the female perineum, which have already been described, are exposed. The sphincter vagina, corresponding to the accelerated urina in the male, consists of an attenuated plane of fibers forming an orbicular muscle around the orifice of the vagina instead of being united in the median, as in the male. The rector clitoritis is profoundly reduced in size, but differs in some respect. And the transverse is probably similar to the muscle, the same name in the male. The triangular ligament of the urethra is not strongly marked as the male. It transmits the urethra in the tube of the vagina. The compressor urethra, transversus perineum profundus, corresponds with the compressor urethra of the male. It arises from the ischiopubic ramus and passing inward, its anterior fibers blend with the muscle of the opposite side in the front of the urethra. Its middle fibers, the most numerous, are inserted into the side of the vagina, and the posterior fibers are in the central part of the perineum. Okay, now I'm going to move to the brain. Okay. The nervous system. The nervous system is composed of a series of large centers of nerve matter called collectively the cerebrospinal centers or cerebrospinal axis. 2, of smaller centers termed ganglia. 3, of nerves connected either with the cerebrospinal axis or the ganglia. And 4, of certain modifications of the the peripheral terminations of the nerves forming the organs of the external senses. The cerebrospinal axis consists of the brain and the encephalon and the spinal cord, which are contained within the skull and the spinal canal. The brain and its membranes will be first considered, and the spinal cord and its coverings. Okay. Cerebral localization and topography. Physiological and pathological research have now gone far to prove that the surface of the brain may be mapped out into a series of definite areas, each one of which is intimately connected with some well-defined function. And this is especially true with regard to the convulsions on either side of the fissure of Rolando, which are believed by most physiologists of the present day to be concerned in motion, those grouped around the fissure being associated with movements of the extremities of the opposite side of the body, and those around the lower end of the fissure being related to the movements of the mouth and the tongue. This is not the place, nor can space be given to describe these localities, but the two accompanying cuts from Ferrier have been introduced and will serve to indicate the position of the more important areas. The relation of the principal fissures and convolutions of the cerebrum to the outer surface of the scalp have been subject to much investigation, and many systems have been devised by which one may localize these parts from an examination of the external surface of the head. These places can only be regarded as approximately correct for several reasons. In the first place, because the relations of the convolutions of the sulcus of the surface is found to be very variable in different individuals. Secondly, because the surface of the area of the scalp is greater than the surface of the area of the brain, so that the lines drawn in front of the one cannot correspond exactly to the sulci of the convolutions of the other. And thirdly, because the sulci and convolutions in two individuals are never precisely alike. Nevertheless, the principal fissures and convolutions can be mapped out with sufficient accuracy for all practical purposes, so that any particular convolution can be generally exposed by removing the trephine on a certain portion of the skull's area. The various landmarks on the outside of the skull, which can be easily felt, and which serve as indications of the positions of the parts beneath, have already been referred to, and the relation of the fissures and convolutions to these landmarks is as follows. Longitudinal fissure. This corresponds to a line drawn from the globula at the root of the nose to the external occipital protuberance. The fissure of Sylvius. The position of the fissure of Sylvius and its horizontal limb is marked by a line starting from the point 1.25 inches horizontally behind the external angular process of the frontal bone to a point 3/4 of an inch below the most prominent point of the parietal eminence.